France waited for a child who never came. Year after year, the cradle stood empty, a hollow vessel, a symbol of a kingdom's despair. To some, it was more than a tragedy, it was proof that their queen was cursed. But Anna of Austria was no ordinary queen. She was a foreign bride, a daughter of the mighty Habsburgs, brought across a river to secure peace with France. And yet, behind the palace walls, whispers of scandal and betrayal shadowed her every step. They said she carried a dark secret, one so dangerous, it could topple thrones. How could the most powerful queen in Europe be called cursed? You're watching Echoes of Time. If you love uncovering the secrets history tried to hide, subscribe now so you won't miss the ending to Anna's extraordinary story. In the year 1615, the river ran cold between Spain and France. On its shifting waters, two floating pavilions faced each other, heavy with banners and guarded by soldiers who gripped their swords a little tighter than usual. On one side stood the daughter of Spain, Anna of Austria, cloaked in silks and silence. On the other, a boy king waited in absentia, his portrait carried like a promise. The air was tense, not with love, but with duty, the kind of duty signed in blood and sealed with crowns. The double wedding was a spectacle, but it was also a trade. A Spanish princess for a French alliance. A girl of 13 for the stability of kingdoms. When Anna stepped off her father's soil and onto the floating platform, she crossed more than a border. She crossed into a life that would no longer belong to her. The French courtiers watched as she spoke her vows in a language that was not her own, her voice trembling yet resolute. That night, in the royal bedchamber, she found a husband who was as uncertain as she was. Louis XIII, awkward and withdrawn, barely looked at her. What began as a treaty sealed with solemn oaths would become a marriage haunted by silence, suspicion, and the unbearable weight of expectation. The halls of the Louvre were vast, but for Anna, they were a cage. Whispers followed her through the corridors, whispers she could not silence, in a tongue that was not her own. To the French court, she was the stranger from Spain, the Habsburg bride whose smile never softened the cold distance of her husband. Louis XIII kept to his hunts, his councils, his music. Rarely to her. Nights passed in silence, chambers divided by more than walls. And when no child came, the silence turned to suspicion. Physicians prodded, priests prayed. Remedies were poured into her hands like bitter wine. Every month of emptiness was measured, tallied, gossiped over. Each passing year, the cradle remained bare, and with it, the murmurs grew louder, barren, cursed, punished by God. Anna endured the rituals of humiliation, public devotions before saints, whispered promises at altars. But in the glittering halls, her prayers were answered only with pitying glances and veiled contempt. She was queen in name, but powerless in truth, her worth measured only in womb and whispers. Imagine living under that pressure. If Anna's struggles shock you, tell me in the comments. And if you haven't subscribed yet, maybe this is the moment to join the journey. Power shifted like shadows in the palace. The fall of Concino Concini, the Queen Mother's favorite, left Anna more exposed than ever. Louis XIII, at last seizing the reins of his own rule, turned colder still, and with his rise came another presence, one far more dangerous. Cardinal Richelieu, sharp-eyed, unyielding, a man who believed France itself was his to guard, even from its queen. To him, Anna was not a wife abandoned, but a threat, Spain's daughter, Spain's spy, a foreign seed planted in French soil. From that moment, every movement was watched. Her ladies whispered in her chambers, some loyal, some bought. Her letters, once private, passed under other hands before they reached their destinations. Even her prayers were suspect. Walls seemed to lean closer, corridors echoed with the sound of footsteps that were not hers. Anna's smile became a mask. She learned to speak in half-truths, to trust no one, to hide her tears behind closed doors. Yet still the rumors grew. Treason, conspiracy, betrayal. This is where Anna's story darkens. If you're here for the hidden chapters of history, subscribing keeps you with Echoes of Time until the very end. It began with letters, folded tight, written in a hand the queen thought the world would never see. Words of friendship, perhaps of longing, carried across borders by trusted messengers. But in the eyes of Richelieu, there was no innocence in ink. Every line was a weapon, every seal a threat. The whispers spoke of the Duke of Buckingham, England's dazzling courtier, the enemy France feared as much as Spain. Did Anna's heart wander across the channel? Or was it politics cloaked in secrecy? No one could say. But in the chambers of the Louvre, rumor was as deadly as proof. One night the knock came. Guards stormed her apartments, torches in hand. Drawers pulled open, chests overturned. Walls struck as though they could bleed secrets. Behind a hidden panel, they found what they sought. Letters, folded and bound, waiting like silent conspirators. Anna was trapped in her own palace, forced to swear oaths before God and crown, forbidden from speaking to those she once called friends, locked in a prison made of eyes and ears. To the world, she was still queen. In truth, she was captive. Would you forgive a queen for this secret? Drop your thoughts in the comments, and if you haven't subscribed, you might regret missing what comes next. Years passed, and with them hope withered. The queen's chambers remained silent, the cradle untouched. Courtiers spoke of annulment in hushed tones. Priests murmured of divine punishment. Anna of Austria, once a promise of alliance, was now an empty vessel, her name wrapped in scorn. And then, when the world had ceased expecting, the impossible happened. In the summer of 1637, whispers began again, not of curses but of life. Anna was with child. The court reeled in disbelief. Doctors surrounded her. Attendants doubled. Guards posted at her doors. Richelieu himself ordered vigilance, no risk, no scandal, no chance for doubt. For months the kingdom held its breath, every eye fixed on the queen who had been all but forgotten. In September of 1638, the silence broke. Bells rang from Paris to the smallest villages. Anna had given birth to a son, a healthy child, a living heir. They named him Louis Dieudonné, Louis the God-given. The cursed queen was cursed no more. She had delivered not just a prince, but the dawn of a new era. The boy who would become the Sun King now lay in her arms, and with his first cry, Anna's fate was forever rewritten. From cursed to blessed, Anna's story flipped history itself. If you want more stories like this, subscribe now. And if you won't, tell me why in the comments, because I know some of you will. Anna of Austria had crossed into France as a girl stripped of choice, a foreign bride bound by treaty. For decades, she carried the weight of suspicion, silence, and shame. Yet in the end, she became something greater, the mother of a dynasty, the guardian of a child who would grow to dominate the age. When Louis XII's life drew to its close, Anna stepped forward into the light. No longer cursed, no longer voiceless, she ruled as regent for the boy who would become the Sun King. From exile in her own court, she had risen to sit at the very heart of power. But her story does not end with a single birth, nor with a crown placed upon her son's head. Anna's life was a chain of shadows and revelations, a tale of survival in a world that would have cast her aside. This was the dark secret of France's queen, that behind the grandeur, history is written in sacrifice, and that even those called cursed can reshape the fate of nations. You've been watching Echoes of Time. If you haven't subscribed yet, now is the moment. Join us, so the echoes of history never fade before your eyes. And if you choose not to, tell us in the comments why. Because every voice, like every echo, leaves its mark.